If you stumbled across this video, it's likely for a reason. You may be searching for something. You maybe think that Buddhism is a way to end needless suffering is what it really is. And it's my mission to improve the health of the world and help end needless suffering. So maybe you've come to the right place. I believe all suffering is needless. But when it comes to Buddhists and Buddhism, I really don't care about that stuff. What I'm interested in is being a Buddha. A Buddha means being awakened. The practice of Buddha's ways is the scientific method. And not being a religion, we can practice that. See, here we have one form of a Buddha. Apparently he's supposed to rub his belly. And he's a happy Buddha, so I like that. It's not what Buddha looked like. Here's another Buddha. Not what Buddha looked like. I enjoy the story of Buddha's life and so on. How much is true, I don't know, but I do believe he was a real man. And as we embark upon our route here, our journey towards becoming a Buddha, we shouldn't imagine what it's like to be awakened. We shouldn't imagine what it's like to be enlightened. Because if you imagine something, that's what you're going to go for. You have to empty your mind, free yourself of any preconceived ideas of what it's all about. Enlightenment's beyond your imagination. So don't even try to imagine what it's like. Just move towards it. It's something that must be experienced. There were two older gentlemen that hadn't seen each other for a while. They met each other on the street. And one friend said to the other, "So it's been a long time. How have you been?" "Oh, I've been doing pretty good." "Yes, and how's your son doing? Is he still unemployed?" he asked. "Yes, yeah, he's still unemployed, but now he's meditating." He said, "Oh, well, what's meditating?" He said, "I don't know, but it's better than sitting around doing nothing." I've had a lot of teachers, but none of them really emphasized spirituality, and yet our practice comes from Buddhist monks of the Shaolin Temple. And their priority was to progress spiritually through harsh physical discipline and practice of Kung Fu. Today in the West, there is still an ever-increasing fascination with the mysteries of the East. The West develops science and the East develops spirituality. More people now define themselves as spiritual rather than religious. They're looking for a more individual approach, placing emphasis on developing our inner world. So how do we develop this inner world? Well, we seek different methods. Yeah. Anyways, Joe, can you tell us who the Buddha is?
Tell us what?
Who's the Buddha?
Buddha? It's this wax candle I have in my house.
Okay, but how about the guy called Buddha? You know who that guy is?
Who?
Buddha?
Buddha? Oh, that big fat guy in India. Somewhere up in Thailand or something. You know what? I was at a Buddhist temple in Thailand and I think I got blessed.
Okay. All right, so the Buddha is a candle.
Well, no, now I know it's a big fat guy.
Okay.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah. And
You're putting the pressure
you're putting on
me,
them. You're full
you
of
said
wisdom.
This is going to be easy. Come on.
I think we've been enlightened.
Lighten up here a little bit, okay?
Enlightenment is something that's difficult to explain to anybody in words. Something that has to be experienced. It's similar to trying to explain to somebody what love is. If you haven't experienced love, all the words in the world aren't going to explain it. And there's been a million songs, a million poems written about it. Similarly, you couldn't explain to somebody what a hunger pain was. You could use a lot of words, but till they've felt a hunger pain, they're not going to know what it is. Now, finding a guru may help. Now, guru actually is made up, the word is made up of two words, gu, meaning darkness, and ru, meaning dispelling of. So a guru is somebody who is going to dispel the darkness. Now, darkness isn't a thing. Darkness is the absence of something called light. So what's required is the shedding of light on things so there can be some clarity. So it's not the light that you're actually seeking, but the clarity that it brings to you. It allows you to see clearly the way things are. And the clarity allows you to reach the ultimate possibilities of your human nature. Gautama Buddha was the first guru of enlightenment, or of Buddhism. And the sole purpose of his teaching was for the liberation from suffering. These teachings have been taken to the point of religion for some. For me, I see it more as the Buddha, Siddhartha, became a great psychologist who had a deep understanding of the makeup of the human being, the psyche, and how to work with it. Well, to eliminate suffering, which none of us really want. And suffering, all suffering is of the mind. So learning how to work with the mind is really what it's about, this psychology. And remember, Buddha was just a man.
Yeah.
So Taylor, have you ever heard of the Buddha?
Yes.
Can you tell me who he is?
No.
Can you tell me anything about Buddha stuff?
Doesn't talk.
Buddha
The
doesn't
Buddhist
talk?
monks don't talk.
Oh, Buddhist monks don't talk.
That's about all I know.
Now, like Eckhart Tolle, I too have lived with many Zen Buddhist masters, and all of them were cats. But I did meet a Buddhist monk once, and he told me to question everything. And I said, why? The purpose of Buddhism and Buddhist teachings was to achieve enlightenment. And enlightenment has a language, and it's called silence. And it is said that those who know do not speak of it, and those who speak of it do not know. Gautama Buddha decided to try and help as many people as he could experience enlightenment and to end needless suffering. So walking from village to village to teach those who would listen, and all the while knowing very few would actually understand. And he spoke to crowds of people and had many disciples, but he himself did not write anything down. And after his death, there were 32 different versions of his teachings that sprung up, proclaiming that this is what Buddha said. And it was more than 2 centuries after his death that anything was put in writing. These writings were sacred books called canons. There were 3 principal canons in 3 different languages. There's the Pali Canon of India, the Chinese Canon of China, and the Tibetan Canon of Nepal. Now, the Pali Canon is the oldest. It is 40 volumes and about 2,000 pages with 10,000 suttas, or scriptures. Since these were written more than 200 years after Gautama Buddha's death, and it's likely that much of Buddha's words have been reworked or invented. So why so many words for something that can't be explained? You know, the best you can do is help point the way. In any case, there are 2 pronouncements that are quoted in all of the canons. They are the Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. So before we get into the task of becoming a Buddha, we must have a look at these pronouncements, since they're at the heart of Buddha's original teachings. People ask, what is this enlightenment? The same way some people ask, what's with this organic food trend? What's organic food? They've forgotten that all food used to be organic. Now we're just trying to get food back to its natural state because it's healthier. Now, many people don't look towards natural, healthier food until an illness strikes. And similarly, it is often terrible suffering that brings a person towards looking for a way out of the suffering. So number one, right understanding. Now, right understanding can be termed right knowledge. Now, this knowledge is that there's an interdependence of all things in existence. Nothing's capable of existing in and of itself. And the second element of the Noble Eightfold Path is right thought and the four contemplations. Right thought is the element of gaining control of your mind. Gaining control of your mind allows you to gain control of your thoughts. Your mind is a very important tool. It's very useful. For example, when you're applying your mind to solve a problem, to create something, to get something done, it's a wonderful thing. You can also use your mind to be creative. However, most of the thoughts that we have occurring in our mind are involuntary. That means we didn't really ask for them. And oftentimes those thoughts can be negative, bringing up the past, maybe issues from the past that create some negative feelings inside you. And if these thoughts are negative, for example, bringing up anger, confusion, hatred, then these are counterproductive, pretty much unwanted. Remember, these thoughts, they're not you, they're just thoughts. And if they're causing you some suffering, you may want to alter that. You can overcome negative thoughts that are creating suffering through what Buddha referred to as the four contemplations. And that's what we'll have a look at now. The four contemplations. The first one, the contemplation of breathing. Now, focusing on your breath will help overcome distractions and confusion in your mind and bring you into the present. Presence is a very important factor. Contemplation of compassion. The contemplation of compassion will throw light on the cause of anger and hate that can become present in your mind. Contemplation of impermanence. Looking at and understanding that there's a beginning and an end to all things. And the contemplation of death. To contemplate and understand and remember that all things eventually decay. This element requires control of the mind. Control of the mind is a really enormous factor. And above all, learn that presence. Presence is where awareness is. Presence is where life is. And only when you're present can you exert some control over your mind. Remember, your mind is yours. Use it. Don't let it use you. Now let's have a closer look at the 5 Buddhist precepts that accompany right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So the 5 Buddhist precepts: do not kill, do not steal, do not commit violent acts, do not lie, and do not take intoxicants. So these are moral precepts or rules of conduct that aim to place us in a position to not generate suffering. However, they alone are not enough to liberate us from this neurotic suffering. Now, these 5 Buddhist precepts are not psychological procedures to help you gain enlightenment. However, they cannot be excluded from our project to achieve and maintain a state of Buddha-ness. Because what these precepts are really saying is that we have all been brought up in a particular society with a particular morality that we've accepted. So going against these precepts will cause a sense of guilt in a person. And guilt is not a good mental state. It's important to eliminate the causes of conscious and unconscious guilt. And we must avoid a way of life that's contrary to the morality in which we were brought up. Because then just practicing Buddhism won't be enough. Someone who has feelings of guilt cannot love themselves. If you feel guilty about something, you'll feel that you need some form of punishment. This in itself is suffering and propagates more continual suffering. So if you're doing something that you think you shouldn't be doing, and it creates some guilt in you, maybe you shouldn't do it. Or maybe you shouldn't take yourself so seriously. Okay, everybody, this is my good friend Joe. Joe's got great aspirations. He's Polish, you know. He wanted to be Pope at one time, and so he would...
And President.
That's right. Oh, and King.
And King, yes.
And being Polish, he would have called himself Pope Sokoli. Or Pope Sokola, was it? Yeah.
Pope Joe John.
The 5 Buddhist precepts. Do not kill. So this, believe it or not, can be variable. It can mean do not kill anything. Not an ant. Not a mosquito. Do not eat meat. Animals eat each other all the time, and they don't feel guilt. But whatever you hold true for yourself, you must either follow or you must change your mind. If you see no reason to eat meat, then don't. In most places in our modern world, we have choice, and eating meat is optional. And as you awaken, you will likely lose your taste for eating flesh. But this can be taken as far as you can imagine. You know, even plants are living things. If you tear one down, if you eat it, you've killed it. And well, there are people who have given up eating altogether, apparently. And these are the sun gazers and the breatharians. Do not steal, do not commit violent acts, do not lie. These are expected behaviors in most, but not all societies, and these may be relative as well. However, with awakening, there's no choice, you just don't see the need. Now, the 5th precept, do not take intoxicants, is one that I'd like to take a little time with right now. Now, if we're not shown a way to find peace, joy, good health, we turn to chemicals. We're trying to gain a bit of pleasure or suppress pain by the use of chemicals. So we look outside of ourselves, using intoxicants to take away our inhibitions, but at the same time, removing our faculties. This doesn't enhance your life in any way. In fact, this is a step backward. You know, life can only be enhanced by sharpening our faculties, not dulling and taking them away in exchange for temporary relief or pleasure. You know, if you call this pleasure. You know, the science of Buddha is looking inside to achieve an end to our suffering, not abusing substances. The most important thing is clarity. So at this point, for the best results, we must abstain from drugs and alcohol and other mind-dulling substances. And like we mentioned before, the 5 precepts are like commandments, and they alone will not bring you to awakening. And people use commandments to try to fix their lives. What we're doing here is raising our consciousness and liberating our minds. And as Sadhguru has said, most people are afraid of liberation. They feel that the intelligence we have as humans is a serious problem. They wish they had the brain of a worm, because this human brain is too hard to handle, so we run from it. And this is where yoga can help. Yoga can be the stable platform that allows us to handle this marvelous intelligence. Now, I don't mean wine and yoga practice, or yoga and cannabis practice. You know, this is just pleasure seeking, looking for that worm brain. You look for clarity, not for some chemically induced experience. Use your intelligence to create bliss. Don't let your intelligence turn against you. So join me today as I embark on this journey. And this journey is a scientific process. Even Einstein saw that Buddha's ideas had a foundation in science. But science takes time to catch up to what's reality. Hey Tina, how about Tina? You know who the Buddha is?
I know he was a real man. That people had some good ideas.
Okay.
And then he died.
Oh, this is better. I can see you guys now. Okay, so the Buddha was a guy. He did some good things, and then he died.
He had some good ideas.
Oh, good ideas. Okay. What, do you remember one of the ideas?
He lived in the mountains.
Okay. Cool. Do you want to know more about the Buddha?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.